everybody, and welcome to Late Night in Canada. I'm your host, Clare Blackwood. Thanks for joining me. How was everyone's pandemic week? Mine was educational. For example, did you know that if you stare at a wall long enough, the wall stares back? It's been such a long year. This week, I'm talking to Ken Hall, an improviser, teacher, and actor you might recognize from both seasons of The Umbrella Academy, and Laura Norris, a Toronto music teacher who has a lot to say about the challenges of teaching during a pandemic. But first, let's get to the news with This Week in the North. I'd like to start the week off with a bit of good news for once, because I care about you all, but mostly because this news concerns me, and I like it when good things happen to me. Ontario officials confirmed on Monday that restaurant servers are going to be on the list of people eligible for the vaccine in Phase 2 of the province's rollout plan, despite being absent from that list just a week before. Now, I'm not saying that this decision was reversed because a server such as myself sent a letter to every official in question that said, "Give us the vaccine or your next shrimp cocktail could be your last," with this accompanying image. But I am saying, don't risk the lives of the people who serve you your food. Also on Monday, Conservative leader and Boy Scout who was just awarded his Big Boy Undies badge, Erin O'Toole, stated that despite his party's recent decision not to accept that climate change is real, he will have a plan to combat it by the next election. And while O'Toole could not say what the plan would be, he emphasized that it would be comprehensive and serious. Well, and this is true, here at Late Night in Canada, we have actually obtained the first draft of O'Toole's climate change plan. If we could just put it up on the screen here. On Tuesday, a spokesperson for China's foreign ministry slammed Canada for criticizing the persecution of China's Uyghur Muslim population, saying that Canada can't talk about human rights abuses considering our history of Indigenous genocide. What? That's not how that works. That's not how anything works. Both things are terrible and should absolutely be condemned. Nobody watches Alien vs. Predator and wonders why the Predator never accuses the alien of murdering a whole bunch of humans too. Heinous crimes against humanity don't cancel each other out. Otherwise, we all know that Justin Trudeau would have criticized China a lot sooner to get us all to stop whining about his failed promises to Indigenous communities. Listen, I know that I said that I'd give you all clean drinking water, but the Chinese government is torturing its ethnic minorities, so we're just gonna forget about both those things. Je suis désolé. On Wednesday, the Ford government announced that families would be receiving $400 per school-aged child in 2021, all of which I have to assume will be going straight into parents' liquor budgets after a year of the government playing will they, won't they with school reopenings. Okay, kids, let's just double check here before you get on the bus. Oh, Christ, you're back home again. All right, fire up those laptops and plug in your headphones. Mommy's breaking open the good scotch and having her daily scream. Oh, it may be 8 a.m., but it's 5 p.m. somewhere. On Thursday, the Supreme Court of Canada ruled that the Liberal government's carbon tax program is constitutional, paving a way to ensure that every province has a price on carbon to help curb greenhouse gas emissions. This is great news for the environment and terrible news for the makers of Alberta Premier Jason Kenney's favorite breakfast cereal, Carbon Crunch. Okay, we got climate change relief out of the way. Now it's time for the important Thursday story. You guys, there was a beaver on the TTC today. This absolute champion strolled into Royal York subway station early Thursday morning, and because this is Toronto, it made the news on every TV station available.
In case you're wondering, the beaver didn't catch a ride anywhere. What? Animal Services showed up to safely remove it, giving it the nickname Nickel. Nice. Before releasing it back into the wild.
You leave him alone. He is just a hard-working beaver trying to get to work to provide for his family like everybody else. Now he'll lose his job, be forced to come home and tell his beaver wife and beaver kids that daddy's going to be home a lot more now. He'll lose the family dam, be forced to work in the beaver mines for pennies on the dollar, and eventually descend into a life of drugs and crime, until one day you'll see him on the street and smugly think, that looks like a beaver who should have done something with his life, before walking by without a single thought as to how you are inherently complicit in his plight. Is that what you want, you monsters? God, I thought we were better than this. What kind of society? In related news, John Tory has just hired the Beaver to oversee all future TTC subway construction, making it the first time in history that projects will actually get built on time. On Friday, variant cases continued to surge. Reports came in that Toronto's COVID ICUs were filled to capacity, with patients having to be transferred to other locations, and the newest modeling from the federal government predicted that Canada will be at 1 million cases by the end of next week. So naturally, Premier Doug Ford stepped up and did the only thing possible, announced an absolute 3-week lockdown, vaccinations for essential workers and teachers, and paid sick leave for all those who can't work from home, in a surprising display of...
The province announced today it's relaxing restrictions in areas currently in lockdown.
What?
We're loosening it up just a little bit.
Okay, no. This has to be a mistake. I'm sure that after he listened to the doctors, he changed his mind.
Today, the Premier defended it all.
I'm going to be frank. People are tired.
Yes, we are tired of your mixed messaging, you...
Well, I wouldn't call it mixed.
So we shouldn't be worried?
We should all be on high alert.
I'm going to go stare at the wall. Last week, an RCMP watchdog report confirmed that the police force racially discriminated against the mother of Colton Boushie, a 22-year-old Cree man shot to death in 2016. According to the report, members of the mounted police informed Debbie Baptiste that her son had been killed, and then proceeded to tell her to get it together, asked if she had been drinking, searched her home, and smelled her breath. This is just one of countless acts of racism filed against the Royal Canadian Mounted Police during its long and fraught tenure. With conversations around the role of the police in society finally getting the attention they deserve, I thought it would be good to look at the RCMP this week, how it began, what it does, and what needs to change in this week's The Focus. The Mounties, adorably dressed, horse riding, bumbling yet friendly goofs in funny hats, keeping the peace and keeping our communities safe from criminals, terrorists, and drug lords determined to destroy Canada and all we hold dear. And that's all there is to it. I'm just kidding. If you believe me, you must be new to my show. Welcome, stranger. Prepare to get really, really sad, and then angry, and then sad again, and then maybe, if we're lucky, a little bit hopeful. I'm just kidding again, because the history of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police is anything but peaceful or friendly. But Claire, I hear you say, how could this be? All our lives we've seen hilarious depictions of Mounties in cartoons, movies, and even late-night shows starring Conan O'Brien. How could Conan O'Brien be wrong? And don't even get me started on the seminal Mountie classic Dudley Do-Right, which taught us all that the mounted police are dim-witted, super hot goofs who sometimes know how horses work. But I want to talk about them, because despite the hard work our history textbooks do to make us believe that the RCMP is a righteous organization that was created to maintain peace and order between settlers and Indigenous peoples, the truth is that racist and colonialist attitudes have been ingrained in it from the start. Now, if you belong to an Indigenous or other racialized community, you most likely already know all of this. But to those of us who were lucky enough to not necessarily be affected by it, welcome to history class. So to start, what is the RCMP and what do they do? Basically, not only are they the Federal and National Police Service of Canada, but they provide provincial policing in every province except Ontario and Quebec, contact-based local policing in the Northwest Territories, Nunavut, and the Yukon, and over 150 municipalities, 600 Indigenous communities, and most importantly, 3 international airports, just in case you were thinking of doing a fun crime or two at Pearson International. They go after crimes of counterfeiting, drug trafficking, illegal border crossings, and protect the Queen, Prime Minister, and other important dignitaries. And, most importantly, they do it while wearing these saucy little outfits. Unless the Discount Halloween Party Store website has led me horribly astray. And all of that sounds well and good, until you look at how and why the RCMP was created in the first place. The Northwest Mounted Police, as they were originally called, was created in 1873 by Prime Minister and dad forced to watch the same goddamn children's Christmas pageant for the 5th year in a row, John A. Macdonald, to patrol the Northwest Territories that the Dominion of Canada had recently purchased from the Hudson's Bay Company. In 1874, Canadian Minister of Justice A.A. Dorion, seen here being told the world's funniest joke, stated that the mounted police's mission was to give confidence to peaceable Indians and intending settlers. Huh, that's a funny word, peaceable. I wonder who got to decide what that meant. The police were there to let everyone know that Canada was in charge now. And if you, an Indigenous person who was just trying to live your life, were confused about why that was because no one consulted you, well, that was just too ding-dang bad. And if you happen to have a problem with the fact that your land had just been sold out from underneath you, well, here, have a reserve. A friendly RCMP officer will force you onto one. And don't worry, while it may look like a prison and feel like a prison, at least you won't be able to leave it unless you show your pass and a white dude says so. But it's definitely not a prison. Oh, and by the way, those friendly mounted policemen are going to stop you from practicing your sacred dances and speaking your languages, and forcibly remove your children and place them into horrific residential schools that will exist until 1996. 1996, as part of the Indian Act, erasing your culture and causing generations of trauma that drastically affects communities to this day. The Northwest Mounted Police basically were like the worst kinds of bouncers at a club. Only the club in question is one that you own and had never had any bouncers. But one day you show up and this bouncer on a freaking horse informs you that the club is under new management now. And we need to see some ID, sir. And you're like, but I come here every day. I literally helped to build this place. What are you doing here? And then they get mad at you for resisting and force you onto reserves. The analogy isn't perfect, but you get what I mean. Now, I would love to say that the RCMP has since ditched its racist origins and learned to better coexist with people who don't look like them, but I can't. You could fill books with accounts of anti-Indigenous and racialized violence committed by the RCMP in the last few decades alone. It would be the saddest book series in history. They'd get Margaret Atwood to write it with explicit instructions to leave out her usually cheery, optimistic outlook on life. All you have to do is search RCMP plus racism to read account after account of unwarranted violence, shootings, and negligence of all kinds. I'm just going to keep this going for a second. Okay. Global News estimates that more than $220 million in taxpayer dollars has been spent in the last 20 years on everything from sexual harassment lawsuits to human rights complaints and federal inquiries into nepotism, workplace bullying, and turf wars with other police agencies. Things clearly have to change. So what can be done? How can we overcome systemic racism inherent in a police force that was specifically designed to, well, do racist shit? After the murder of George Floyd last summer, protests against police brutality were sparked across North America, leading many to call for the defunding of the police. And before white people rush to their keyboards to leave me angry YouTube messages that clearly show that they have never once Googled the phrase defund the police, let me just say, it doesn't necessarily mean tell every police officer you know to fuck off and become an accountant. It just means taking portions of often massive police budgets and putting that money towards social programs, mental health and addiction treatment, housing services, and violence interruption programs that don't rely on having a gun and a history of misusing it. Krista Big Canoe, Legal Advocacy Director for Aboriginal Legal Services, wants people to understand, however, that simply moving money around won't be enough to rebuild relationships between the RCMP and Indigenous people, stating, there needs to be a lot done to actually see the reform and build trust with the Indigenous community. No kidding. There's no magic solution to fixing almost 150 years of abuse and mistrust. If Emperor Palpatine suddenly declared that his army of stormtroopers had taken a sensitivity course and shifted a few Star Wars dollars around, which I am choosing to assume are called Starbucks, because it's my show and you can't stop me, and then was like, you can trust us now, guys, the people of the galaxy would absolutely be justified in telling him to fuck all the way off. In the Northwest Territories, there are calls to allow Indigenous communities to decide how to best protect themselves, arguing that dismantling oppressive policing structures in favor of more community-oriented lawmaking approaches would better serve the people there. That does, however, bring up the issues of what laws those Indigenous communities would enforce, considering that most laws imposed upon them were, shall we say, not always created with their best interests in mind, and exactly what structures would be put in place of the RCMP, with many arguing that Replacing the RCMP with an Indigenous police force would simply be shifting the colonial model of policing from one agency to another. Yeah, it's easy for us to forget that we're the ones who came in, took over their lands, and decided how they should all behave in a series of actions so aggressive that they make Miley Cyrus's Wrecking Ball look less like a fun music video and more like an instructional colonialist how-to guide. Last summer, RCMP Commissioner Brenda Lucki acknowledged that she believes systemic racism exists in her police force, stating that throughout our history and today, we have not always treated racialized and Indigenous people fairly. She then went on to explain that water is wet and Loki, Prince of Asgard, has eyes for me and me alone. But it's important to note that she made this statement only after denying it multiple times beforehand, claiming that she struggled to define the term systemic racism, which is often a convenient excuse for people to use when they don't want to admit something and choose to be deliberately pedantic about it. Okay, Miss Blackwood, I see here that your rent was due 2 weeks ago. I'm sorry, I'm just struggling to define the term due. I feel as though it's imposing arbitrary boundaries on what is essentially the abstract landlord-enforced concept of time. Therefore, I will not be paying my rent this month. The commissioner has promised to work hard to address systemic racism and overcome it, which is a good start. But how do you overcome something that so many within your organization still adamantly deny?
We have rolled out cultural and humility training, and all senior managers have taken it. It's rolled out to all employees, and it will be mandatory for each and every employee.
I will give 100 Starbucks to anyone who can tell me what humility training is, and even more if you can tell me if it's going to make police officers less racist. There have been calls to pull back the RCMP's responsibilities to a federal level and get them out of smaller communities provincially, freeing up funds in those provinces to create their own police forces or alternate methods of community protection. Considering that at least 70% of the RCMP's budget comes from provincial funding, that is a massive chunk of change. And several provinces have stated interest in ending their RCMP contracts in favor of other organizations. But at the end of the day, the only way things are ever going to change is if the RCMP fully accepts its complicity in upholding the structures with which it was created and work with racialized communities to rebuild from the inside out. Because let's be very clear here, the call is coming from inside the house. Treaty 8 Deputy Grand Chief Ramona Horseman said it best on Friday when she stated, "We have thoughts, ideas, and solutions. Work with us and make these come true. We don't want to be statistics anymore." This has been The Focus. Oh, and defund the friggin' police. My first guest tonight is Ken Hall, a Toronto-based actor, improviser, and teacher currently starring as both Herb and the body of Pogo in Netflix's smash hit series, The Umbrella Academy. We had a virtual sit-down to chat about his favorite times on set, teaching mindfulness to actors, and how improv can improve your life. Hi, Ken. How are you?
Hi, Claire. How are you? Good to see you.
It's good to see you, too. Thank you so much for coming on Late Night in Canada.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Awesome.
I love it. Late night in Canada, but it looks like it's so sunny where you are.
Don't tell anyone. It's a secret.
Oh, gosh.
It's the only late night show that goes up at 1 p.m. on a Monday afternoon. Damn it, Ken, you've ruined everything.
The rules. This is not theater. You've been lied to, everyone.
I would love to start off talking to you about the Umbrella Academy because, I mean, it's exploded. You have exploded. Like, you're getting all this like awesome fan mail and don't you have like figurines of yourself now? It's awesome. Oh my God.
Pogo.
Yes, wonderful. Yeah, because you play Herb and you are the body of Pogo on the show. And so congratulations on 2 awesome seasons so far. I'm obsessed. I'm so excited for season 3.
I remember you Facebook messaged me when season 2 came out, and you're like, "I watch it in real time," and so
Yeah.
thank you for watching, and thanks for being a fan. Thanks for the great energy. It's been lovely. It's been a wild experience to and just as you said, like the how grateful I am to play 2 roles on the show, 2 very different roles as well. Getting to see the show from 2 different angles, and it's such a lovely, fun universe to play in. And I love that we can time travel. I love that we have talking chimpanzees that, like it's such a really cool world to exist in. So yeah, thanks for watching.
Yeah, of course. I'm really excited for the next season. Are you guys, I'm assuming you're in the middle of filming right now?
Yes, filming for season 3 has started. Yes, it is. Very excited.
Well, I was gonna say, I'm sure that there are a lot of things, like most things you can't say, but I assume that there are big things for Herb coming up this season.
I can neither deny nor confirm any of these, which probably doesn't make for a good interview, I suppose. Like,
That's okay.
hey, well, thanks, Ken. Thanks for coming on the show. Can't answer any. I can talk about like season 1 and season 2, but obviously I can't talk about season 3.
No, of course.
At all. But
have there been, like, can you tell us about some of your favorite moments from season 1 or 2? I know you can't.
Sure.
I tried. But yeah, I just want to know, like, your favorite moments from working on the show.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a two-pronged thing, because there's those moments. I remember my first day of season 1, which was one of the hardest shoots that I've ever done, because I had like really super bad bronchitis. I was on antibiotics. I didn't sleep the night before, and it was an outdoor shoot. It was the funeral scene. And so this is my first time on set, and it's that first thing of like, this is my first day on the job.
Of course.
So I want to do a good job, but I'd love to get some rest. But so I went in there feeling like my back was up against the wall. But it's one of those things that you get through those moments and you survive it, and you're like, holy smokes, I can actually do a lot more than sometimes what I think I'm capable of doing. So that's a huge takeaway, and I feel very proud of that scene in particular, because it looks amazing. And we were out in the rain at the end of January and here in Toronto, and they actually had like artificial sprinklers to make like really beautiful big raindrops. So I'm like,
just in case anybody thought filming was ever glamorous.
No, it's hard. It's really hard. And I had all these like sweaters stuffed under it, and I was wearing like 3 pairs of long johns and stuff, just to keep warm. And then I go inside, and then I'm like boiling. So, but I survived it, and I did really well. And I feel great about the work that I did. And but the other thing too of like favorite moments, it's like it's a collection of small incidental things that are like that put a smile on my face. Like sitting outdoors and like in between scenes at a picnic table, the place where we're filming, where the commission is. And I was like, I don't know, it's just like these kind of moments, these interactions that I have with either cast or crew, and making someone laugh, or like, that's what it's about. Having pierogies on set, oh my gosh. Like, that's a whole episode right there. But Ken Hall, fun fact, that is my treat of choice when I'm on set. They taste so good. I do not know what the ingredient, like how they make, but I've never been able to replicate that outside of being on a set. But pierogies on a set are one of my favorite moments as well.
Awesome. I love you're on this like critically acclaimed Netflix hit show, and you're like, what was my favorite part? The pierogies.
It's really the craft services. Yeah. I'm a bit of a foodie myself, so. Oh yeah, physical comedy. Yeah, that's important too. But like,
it's fine. But like sour cream though.
Well, that's it. I wrote that into Herb's backstory of like, Herb is such a foodie. He we don't know anything about that, but so I'm really meta. I'm really a method actor, and
I've always thought of you.
Herb's always by the trail of the food. He's always eating. He seems great.
You're also a very much beloved actor and improviser and a teacher in Toronto. And you're also teaching a class. You're teaching a class on mindfulness right now. What is that? And how would you say it helps in performance?
It's been something that I've been jamming with and incorporating a lot more in my life the past 5+ years or so. I've done a lot of silent meditation retreats. And because I've always grown up being a very scared, very anxious person. And meditation and mindfulness was really the first thing that I discovered that could really, that I could actually help myself to feel better, to process feelings, and to actually be more present to the moment. Because so much of my life I've spent worrying about things that could happen that never do, and worrying about things in the past that I can't change. But I've really kind of like, I'm still attached to it, you know, and can't really shake those feelings. So it's really the meditation was the first real practical tool that I had was to mitigate thoughts and feelings and to integrate more of like mind and body. So as a performer, and largely as an improviser as well, you transition into acting. That idea, I think of like Brené Brown of, you know, the courage to be fully seen and how we show up. And I like to think that we have more agency over that. So instead of being at the whim of our thoughts and feelings that have really hijacked us over the years, is that we can actually show up to play to the best of our ability and to show up more at a place of ease rather than worry and fear and a lot of self-judgment and such. And so I find like mindfulness is a really amazing tool for improvisers who play very much actually in the moment.
Yeah.
Some of the best improv is really those moments where you like finish a scene and you're like, what happened? Oh my gosh, I did that. Oh my, like it's such a lovely catalyst to spend time, even if it's only like 3 minutes out of someone's day in an improv scene, but they're really connected with their scene partner. They're really hearing and seeing everything that's happening. That's the repetition of that, we can bring more of that into our day-to-day life. So for me, it's just really teaching people how to bring more presence into the moment, to spend time in the moment, to find safety in the actual moment, connecting with your breath and detaching from the thoughts and feelings that really kind of sweep us away quite often. So I've been jamming with that, and I've been really loving it. And a big part of everything that I do, I think one of the things is like, it helps people. It helps me, but it's very much like I want to connect. I want to make a difference. I want to get a reaction from someone. I want to make someone laugh. I want to make a difference. And that gives me meaning. So I'm like, it's lovely to help people, like to help people learn real practical tools that they can do. And over the course of this year, this is like the time we're sitting with our thoughts and feelings so much more. We don't have shows to go to anymore, you know, albeit on Zoom and such, but it's like we've gotten off the hamster wheel in a bigger way, and it's just given people an opportunity to reflect more and actually feel more of their feelings and to sit with their thoughts and such. So meditation and mindfulness are those things that can really self-soothe yourself and to really begin to tolerate uncomfortable feelings, so that you can, at the end of the day, so you can integrate them and feel more comfortable in your own skin.
Well, that kind of feeds into my last question for you, which is, I mean, in terms of improv and classes for life skills, for people who maybe aren't, they don't consider themselves actors, or they don't consider themselves in the arts. I think people underestimate just how versatile improvisational skills are in everyday life. So, I mean, what would you say to people who aren't in the arts, who would never, ever call themselves an actor, but who might be interested in taking improv?
Yeah, I am such an advocate of trying improv, because it can be a gateway for people to, as it was for myself, to actually find a career, you know, like to become a performer, to actually like, I guess I'm an artist. Oh wow, this is a wonderful new world I didn't know was a big part of who I was. But I think for so many other people, and you see this in the introductory improv levels, is quite often people are looking for something more. They're looking to often improve themselves, whether it be public speaking, whether it be comfortability just in front of others. And I think the transformative effects of what improv can give you, and at the end of the day, it's fun, it's play. And as adults, we forget that. And so there's a lot of the times when I'm teaching improv, I'm actually just teaching adults how to play a game, how to harness that younger side of themselves, so that they don't again like bring in recrimination, doubt, judgment, because there's so much of an adult life is full of that, you know? And so for me, it's that thing that it's a catharsis. There's a huge healing component within the mechanics of improv, but it's a fun process as well that can really grow and open more doors of possibility. Because my background too is in career counseling, and I just know that for people that have gotten involved in improv, it doesn't mean that they're going to become like the next Colin Mockery, for example. But it opens doors for them personally, and it resets them. It gives them it changes how they look at life and how they approach life. So the basic fundamentals of improv is just being open. And you give me an offer and I honor that. I celebrate that offer. And if you do that in scenes, you can actually bring that into your day-to-day life. And that was living proof of that. I started to say yes and in my improv scenes, and then I started to, it spilled out of my day-to-day life early on too. And I remember someone in my level A class was like, "Hey, do you want to go for sushi?" And I'm like, I want to say no, because my default in life was to say no to things to keep me safe,
Yeah.
to keep me with what was familiar. But I'm like, all right, yes. And then I had sushi for the first time. I'm like, this is amazing. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been doing life all wrong. And then that became my default. And then everything that has led me to here, to be in an umbrella, for example, and just to to have the opportunities to teach, and it's all because of just me choosing to put myself into an uncomfortable position of putting myself out there in front of people and saying yes to things and enjoying the process. And that's the thing, if like people are looking to connect with other people, if you're looking to get more comfortable in your own skin in a very safe, supportive environment, improv is this thing. Improv is just a wonderful tool. And it's great for artists and great for actors, but it's like, it's for everyone. It's a universal tool.
Again, congratulations on Netflix's Umbrella Academy. If you haven't watched it, you have to check it out. It's great. Ken, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate it. It's great chatting.
My second guest tonight is Laura Norris, a music teacher with the Toronto District School Board. We chatted about how to teach singing without being able to, well, sing, what teachers really need during a pandemic, and exactly what she'd say to Doug Ford if she got the chance. Take a look. So you are a teacher and you are a music teacher. I'd love for you to just kind of brief us on what you do.
Sure. I teach in the Beaches neighborhood of Toronto at Malvern Collegiate. And I've been there for strangely 16 years. It seems it's gone really, really quickly. Been in the same room for 16 years, going up the same stairs every day. I've been teaching vocal and band there at Malvern for a long time. And I also teach social science. So that's where I'm coming from. And the grades are grade 9 to 12.
Okay, awesome. So, I mean, wow. As a music teacher, I can't imagine how difficult and challenging and like innovate like this has been for you, and probably how much you've had to innovate in terms of curriculum. Like, how have you changed what you normally do to best serve your students, especially as a music teacher during a pandemic?
Right. It's pretty much the worst type of teacher to be. So kind of my journey with this was all summer watching all of these aerosol studies that were put on by universities in the States, because they have huge music schools in the States. So all of these studies were being done where they were looking at what are the aerosols a saxophone puts out, what are the aerosols a flute puts out, trombones, etc. And vocal music, which I knew I was doing this year. I actually don't have any instrumental this year. I just happened to not. It came out, so many aerosols put out with singing, so there's going to be no singing. So maybe July and August were my crying months. Just a lot of, oh my goodness, all of the program that I've been building for 16 years at this school, trying so hard to get kids to take vocal, specifically because you're fighting against, in 4 years of high school, you're fighting against the chemistries and the Englishes and other interesting courses, and there has to be a reason for them to take vocal all the way to grade 12. So there was a lot of crying, and then I just thought, well, I have to hop to it, and there's nothing that can be done. So there's no singing, no instrument playing, and we are continuing along somehow, teaching music in a pandemic.
So how are you doing that? Like, how are you teaching music? Because I've seen everything. I've seen like outdoor rehearsals. I've seen pictures of, that are coming in from the States of like musicians playing in bags.
Yeah.
So like, how are you teaching instruments in vocal without actually doing it?
I've actually heard those bags referred to as COVID bombs. So when you open up the bags, it's like an explosion of COVID. So that's just something interesting.
That is horrifying.
I know. So in the TDSB specifically, we are not allowed to sing outside. We are not allowed to sing inside. Outside with masks on, nothing. We're not allowed to play instruments outside. And we are in fact not allowed to hum. And this came in an email, no humming. So
Wow.
the thing that I kind of think about a lot is phys ed. The phys ed kids are running the track, they're in the gym, they're playing basketball, heavy breathing, and we are not allowed to sing outside with a mask on and play ukulele. So anyway, that's just a part of it. But
anyway, the rage stifles me every day, and I want to scream. But moving on.
Yes, exactly. So what are we doing? So we've been, as you know, we've been shifting and pivoting and back and forth from online to in-person learning. But what we're doing right now is I have 4-hour classes with my vocal classes. We are doing everything except singing. So we're doing music theory. I've bought ukuleles for the kids just so we can do something together, but we can't sing, but we're playing along with Harry Styles and, you know, playing along with people, but just with our mouths shut. I have boom whackers for them. So we're playing, there's these tubes, these pitched tubes. We're doing some of that. I still continue to do my kind of genre units where we're doing a jazz unit, we're doing a music theater unit, and we learn everything around it. And then we sing at home. So all of the singing is done in the online classes.
Right.
So I'm staring at 30 black boxes. Not one kid turns their camera on. Every day at 2 p.m. to 3:15, and I'm on my piano going, turn the page, sing, and then they record their pieces. So we work on choral pieces and also individual solo pieces. They record them and then they turn them into me on a web-based program called Soundtrap. So that's basically what we're doing.
So, okay, you're doing all of this work, and that kind of segues into my next question, which is, I mean, we've all been having a lot of conversations this last year and for a lot longer than that, but especially this last year, about the need for smaller class sizes and the fact that you guys aren't getting it, you're not getting it. But so we all know about that, but beyond that, what do teachers need in terms of support that you aren't getting right now that you wish kind of that the public knew about?
I think in high school, actually, the class size thing, at least in my reality, is pretty good because they did make the cohorts, but that means we have to teach in this quadmester system. So I'm around 15 kids at a time, which is actually pretty good, but I do have 58 kids in my bubble. So it's me and 58 kids, and you know, what are those kids doing? But I think the hardest thing has been just the shifting back and forth and the amount of work it takes. And I don't think that people quite understand that. So for example, we were in school up until Christmas break. Then during Christmas break, they told us, oh, we're going remote. So I had to use my whole Christmas break to change my entire program and go remote. So I'm working for a week, 10 days on Christmas break to try to plan for that. Then we're back. Then because of this fake March break thing coming up in April, the way it hits with the quadmesters, we're going to have to be marking and working and prepping for our next quadmester the entire April break. So it's just...
So everyone is really in love with Stephen Lecce, is what you're saying.
Oh, it's, yeah, I don't, it's so difficult to know. I think really what we need is just kind of support and just parents thanking us. I've gotten emails this year and parents saying, thank you so much. And I've never been more in contact with my students' parents because you have to be so in contact this year. I think that that's a really, that's really helpful. Just people kind of acknowledging us and saying, wow, thank you. Because we are not babysitters, right?
No.
This is another challenge, I think. And I don't know that people quite understand this, but so many people through this have had the option to work at home, and, you know, they're complaining about working at home, and rightfully so. And people want to be around people in the office, etc. But we don't have the choice to work at home, and we are being put I literally feel like I'm risking my life, you know,
I mean,
and I
you
do.
are.
Yeah, and I try to be super positive, and I have windows open, and I have my mask on, and I'm staying away. But when you're around 58 kids, and my own children's schools are in outbreaks, and they're having to getting tested all the time, and it's just like kind of Russian roulette of like, when is it going to happen in my classroom or to me? But I think it's just kind of knowing that, yeah, we're not babysitters, we're real people. We love our jobs. We're trying so hard to continue to teach the kids, and the kids want to be in school so badly. So we're trying so hard to be there for them.
Well, my final question to you is an open-ended one. If you could say anything to our glorious Premier Doug Ford, what would it be?
Just that I have seen nothing that they've promised. I have not seen a nurse. I have not seen a HEPA filter. I have not seen kids getting tested at my school. I just have seen nothing. I just don't, I just don't understand what they're talking about when they're telling the public all of these things that are happening. But everyone who has kids in school is looking around going, okay, where are these nurses? Where are these extra people? I have seen the caretakers wiping door handles, and I've never seen that before.
Thank God.
I know. They wipe door handles.
Amazing.
So thank you.
COVID is done. It's done now. Save everything.
Another thing I'd like to say is, and this is actually very current, but they're talking just today about keeping virtual school options open.
Yes.
And I would say, do not do that. We were just fighting last year, just a year and a couple of weeks ago, and on strike saying, don't even make them do one virtual class in high school. And now they're considering keeping virtual schools, the virtual school open. And teaching and learning in that environment, I have a daughter in grade 10, and I watch her trying to learn grade 10 science over a computer with a teacher doing math problems. And she has math next quadmester. It is not a way to learn. There is no community. Yeah. There literally are 30 black squares, and you're like, raise your virtual hand if you're still here. It's terrible. It's soul sucking. It's kind of torturous. You wonder who's listening to you, what parents are in the background. I'm like, hey moms, don't know. Anyway, I would just say that I would like Doug Ford to come teach 30 black boxes for, a month. Just look at the black boxes and see the foolish things you say.
I love that. Yep. That's awesome. Well, Laura, thank you so much for taking the time out of your extremely busy schedule. I really appreciate it.
Was nice to do something different. Thank you.
This has been Late Night in Canada. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.